This is Berni Goldblat, everybody. Can you give him a huge round of applause?
Hello.
And it's an incredible film, but I'm going to start by asking Berni the same questions. Let's just talk a bit more about what you do, Berni. Just what do you do?
Yes, hello, thank you very much. I am a filmmaker, so I make films. I produce films, I make films, and I love films, and I eat films, I watch films, I dream films, I live films.
And where did you grow up?
I grew up in Sweden, in Stockholm, in the north of Europe. That's where I was born.
And when you were the same age as these guys, did you have any... Well, what's your favorite memory from school?
I don't know the age of these guys. How old are you? 13. 13 is the majority, right? All right.
Older? Yeah, okay.
13 is exactly the age of the main protagonist of my film, who is also 13 in the movie. No, I didn't know at all what I wanted to do. And I didn't think of it, actually.
What was your favorite memory from school? What did you love about being 13 and being at school?
I loved being with my friends. I didn't like school. But I loved school because I had my good friends there. So I loved, the atmosphere of being with my friends, but I didn't particularly like, to work.
I don't know,
the school.
Who enjoys school? Oh, silence! Look at that. Ah, well.
One hand there.
Yes, I'm sure there are the good and the bad. So we're going to talk a bit about the film. I don't know if any of you, well, you're probably in school, so you didn't see this film, Wallay, which is an incredible film that Berni's done, and it's an award winner. I think we'll let Berni just talk a little bit about the plot. So if you're going to pitch me the plot, Berni, what would you say?
Okay, it's the story about a young kid who is 13. He lives alone with his father in Paris. And his father is from Burkina Faso, is in West Africa, and his mother, who was French, passed away a couple of years before. And summertime arrives, and his father sends him for the first time in the country of his origins. And the kid thinks that it's for holidays, so he's very excited, and he's happy to, for the first time discover Burkina Faso. But actually, the father has another plan. So it's not at all for holidays that he sent him there. It's because he considers that, the boy is rude and doesn't know how to behave, and he has problem with his son. So he thinks by sending him to the village far back in Africa, things would be better.
So this is a boy who, we see, riding a moped without helmets and buying trainers, in a kind of car park. And he's obviously getting his money from somewhere. So what we find out in the film is that his dad has been asking him to send money back to his grandmother and his uncle, and he's been creaming money off the top and buying trainers, as I say, and all these, and iPods and headphones and... but I found really beautiful about this film is it really looks at this whole idea of being 13 or 14 and being a boy, and there's very few rituals now that we can do that men can do or boys can do to become men, and that's what happens in this film. That Wallay slowly actually goes through a kind of rite of passage. Maybe let's just talk a little bit about that and about this whole notion of boyhood to manhood.
Actually, this boy has different origins, but he doesn't know his African part. because he's always been in France. He's been raised up like a French boy, so he doesn't know the culture, he doesn't understand the language. So his uncle, when he arrives, decides, to make him grow. So he forces him to, to go through a difficult path in the forest, and to go to visit his grandmother, who lives even more back far in the countryside. And when he meets with his grandmother, who is very old, who is 83 years old, who doesn't speak French, he doesn't speak the African language, but when they meet, something very interesting happens, because she symbolizes the origins that he doesn't know. And she's the one who will make him change, because she would love him exactly like she would love her son, and he just accepts this love. As the uncle is very rude, the uncle represents the morality, the law, and he's very brutal in a way. But the grandmother comes and make things change for him.
I mean, it's the acting in it is quite incredible. The uncle is this very stern guy with a beard and a stick, and he really inhabits that kind of African elder, very stern African man, very, very, very well. In terms of the grandmother, it's an interesting one, because we're looking also at ancient wisdom, I think, in this. And I think, there's a few things we could sort of take out of it, that we really don't listen to our grandparents and our elders nearly enough, certainly in the West.
But now in the West, many old people are being sent in the old house. And even when we live in the same town, we say we don't have time to see our grandmother because we work, because we do this and that. And this is completely incredible for Africans to say, yes, I've seen my grandmother 6 months before, as she lives in the same town. And this is really crazy, actually. And now we see also with this stupid American president, Donald Trump, who is devising the families.
I think we can maybe agree.
Yes, because he's dividing families, and now you can see babies in jails without their parents, and so it's something. I mean, the world is really a strange place, actually.
So on that, let's talk about the idea of film as a sort of political statement, because this is obviously very abstract in that way, because it's actually a beautiful, heartwarming, lyrical film, but there are statements to make, and I think that certainly one of them, I mean, when you guys think of Africa, what do you think? Do you think the negative images, or this is showing the positive side of Africa, and I think that's why it's also such an important film. Let's talk a bit about that.
Since 25 years, I live in West Africa. Now I have the Burkina Faso passport. I'm married with a Burkina Faso woman. I have a child.
1 month old, right?
1 month old. And
I think a round of applause, really. Well done. Welcome to the world.
Thank you. And so I can say that this country has adopted me also. And of course, it was obvious that I will have to shoot in this country, this film. And this is the way I see the country. It's not, I don't think it's exaggerated, but it's true that most of the times in the films or in the medias or in the newspapers or on the internet, when we speak about Africa, it's always negative. You very seldom say, success stories about what happens in Africa, but Africa is 53 countries. It's much more people than in Europe. It's enormous. So, there are terrible things, of course, but there are also good things. And first of all, there are human beings, and living with their culture, with their challenges, with their happiness, and also with their problem, like everywhere. So for me, it was important also to show this.
I mean, we saw another film yesterday called Stranger in Paradise that was very thought-provoking and very confronting, which is looking at the refugee crisis, that what's happening in Africa with these kind of imposed borders and walls going up and, border controls. And, it's interesting. So when Africa, before the kind of colonial times, I mean, all these countries are just enforce borders, aren't they? You know, you've got the the Malian Empire was once, you know, extended all over West Africa.
Yes, most of the time in Europe, the people think that the history of Africa began with the colonization, but colonization was only, you know, 200 years ago, and all those countries were as old as, you know, countries here. So they have their own languages, culture, belief, and system. And of course, the borders are now a real problem in Africa because those borders have been drawn by the Europeans. In 1880, during the Berlin Conference, they took the map of Africa, the Germans, the French, the British, the Portuguese, and they just divided the continent.
Like a pie.
And they said, okay, this is for you, this is mine, this is his. And up to now, there are wars in the continent because of those borders, which are sometimes dividing villages, dividing families. And this is crazy. You can see a border between Burkina Faso and Ghana. In Ghana, they speak English. And in Burkina, they speak French. And the border is crossing in the middle of the villages and doesn't mean anything.
Do you feel that the film can actually, you know, give this message over that is this other side to Africa?
I don't know exactly. You know, when you make a movie, I don't make a film for a special kind of message. For me, a movie is first of all emotions. And if you have emotions when you see a movie, then I think this is the most important thing. It means if a movie makes you laugh or cry or dream, or if a movie makes you think, you know, a couple of days or weeks later, then I think you have succeeded something. But it's not a particular message. I think there are a lot of, you know, messages that you can keep while doing a film or while watching a film. For me, the important thing also is to say that you are what you have done. You are not European. You're not European because you are white. You are not African because you are black. It's much more complicated. You are what. It's a sum of the things that you have done in your life, which makes you what you are actually. And the life is a long path, and this is why you always learn until you die.
I think that's all we've got time for, but that's a brilliant note to finish on. Can we give Berni a big round of applause?